Good evening, everyone. Ginni, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you. And it is wonderful to be with you, but also with the International Women's Forum here tonight. It's really an honor.
IBM is 109 years old. The company has lived through so many crises, but we are undergoing a crisis unlike any that we've seen in history. Can you talk a little bit about how IBM has been dealing with the COVID-19 health crisis for your employees?
Well, sure. Well, look, first, as with everyone, this is still a crisis underway and something that we wish the best for everyone. But at 109 years, you are right, we have seen many things, many wars, many pandemics, many illnesses. And the one thing I think I've learned and time has taught me, it's been about responsibility, but where it intersects with your purpose. So the types of things you've seen us do, on one hand, we're working on the long-term cure, and that is by leashing together all the high-performance computing around the world. To the other end, we've applied AI in 25 countries to give consumers a trusted answer when it comes to things around COVID. And of course, taking care of clients and our employees.
What do you see as some of the positive outcomes of the crises for IBM and for society?
Yes, this is a really important question because actually it's a perfect storm, a trifecta, because now you've got not only the pandemic, you've got the economy, and then in many parts of the world, if not everywhere, the issue of racial justice. And to me, what it's done is it's accelerated inequality, actually. And I could look at that as very disappointing, or I could say it's highlighted something that's really broke that has to get fixed. So I am very optimistic that now when I look at this, what we all can do in partnership with government and all working together is do things to make this a fair economic opportunity for everyone. Because in many ways, economic opportunity does in fact equal social justice. And so I think what will come out of this is preparing many, many people to thrive in a digital era.
IBM has a long track record of advocating for diversity and inclusion in its ranks. But I think there are many people who look at the world and say companies haven't done enough. Can you talk a little bit about IBM's track record in this area and where you've excelled and where you have work to do?
Well, look, we have done a lot, and we've done a lot right. If you go back in our history, 1899, the first woman, first Black employee. Then it was 1935, equal pay. 1953, equal opportunity. And I mean, we just marched forward like that. But I think for all of us, how I've always looked at it is that yesterday was just a foundation for today. And clearly, I know my tenure, the focus has been on inclusion, which, diversity is a number and a representation. Inclusion is a decision. And then in addition to inclusion, my focus has really been about offering economic opportunity for all. And that to me is the next step in diversity and inclusion.
How are you using your platform, both personally as well as your role at IBM, to work externally on diversity and inclusion issues? I understand you're engaged in a number of initiatives.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you use the word platform, because if you had asked me that question many years ago, I probably would have said to you, and if you would have asked me about being a woman in business, I would have said, no, don't bring up that idea, that platform. Don't bring it up. I never want to be known as just a woman or a woman CEO. I want to be known for its merits. But over time, I have come to understand quite well that what I have is a platform, which is what you just said. And it's a platform for both being a role model for so many people who look and, that old saying, you can't be what you cannot see. So A role model for women in business, but then B, it's a platform that, given a company like IBM and its presence in 170 countries and one of the largest techs in the world, you really can drive change. And one of the things that was, to me, most pivotal was when you saw the evolution of what I will call good tech versus bad tech. And that, to me, said we needed to be the platform for good tech. Trust, prepare society, diversity, and inclusion.
And so as you think about ways that IBM and you can spread the word about diversity and inclusion, what are some of the external ways that we can do a better job of increasing diversity and inclusion? I understand you're partnering with a number of prominent African American executives here in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, well, just a little bit of background here in that one of the things I think that is relevant to all of us, it's something I've worried about for over a decade. When the digital era started to accelerate, to me it was clear there would be have and have nots, meaning your skills that would be needed to thrive would move so fast, it would either leave behind some generations or new generations coming through school wouldn't be prepared. And we were moving so quick that you'd have to do something on both ends of the spectrum. So we've been very devoted to education, not just for youth, but also mid-career. And so it's something I'd really recommend for everyone because I think this is square at the intersection of A, we need the skills, B, we can do something about it. And on one end, we've worked around the world in something called PTech, Pathway to Technology, Early College High School, 6-year high schools that you also get an associate degree. And the idea is, can I bring people into the workforce who don't yet have a college degree? Because if we rest on just that degree versus skills, we will always leave a huge part of the population behind. And we now have a decade under our belt at this work. And I can tell you these students, well, now grown up, are just as productive as my students and my employees with degrees. At the other end of the spectrum, I think now with racial justice, injustice that you have seen, the biggest thing you can do is give people an economic opportunity. So I'm involved in an effort to actually hire 1 million Black employees into the middle class. And these are all, to me, all intersecting at the same point. If you give people a chance to have a good career, a good economic for their family, it not only helps society, but it does the right thing for business. And this is all about, in my view, doing the right thing for the long term.
Ginni, you mentioned that early in your career, you didn't want to be seen as a woman CEO. You wanted to be seen as a CEO of a tech company who happened to be a woman. What was the turning point for you when you realized that you had an opportunity to, as you said, have a platform for issues and to encourage women to follow a path that didn't look unlike yours?
You know, it's funny because there were two incidents that perhaps catalyzed my change of view on this, and they're actually separated by decades. And I can remember back, oh boy, it's got to be 30 years ago at least. I was at a presentation, giving a presentation in Australia, and I had finished, and a man came up to me, and I thought he was going to tell me about how great my presentation was. And instead, he said to me, "I wish my daughter could have seen you." And in that moment, that was my first sort of glimpse that maybe I was there to do something more than just my job. And then decades would follow. And in my role as CEO, which, as I said, I always wanted to be known first as a great CEO, second as a woman. But as I watched the digital era unfold, it was clear there would be a bit of a battle between good tech and bad tech. And I felt we had to define ourselves and be the gold standard for good tech. And that meant you had to use a platform and a platform to really drive positive change. Or people would rebel against this technology and it would not be a good thing. So AI had to be used ethically, as an example. Or if people put up information on child prostitution on the internet, you should be held liable. So we took positions on things like that. And to me, that is what drove home this point about being a role model for women and using a platform for change.
Ginni, last question. A little over a year ago, you were one of the CEOs who signed on to the Business Roundtable's new statement of purpose. It essentially said that a corporation's purpose was not only to serve shareholders, but to serve shareholders alongside an ecosystem of constituents that included employees and the community and vendors and customers and suppliers. Tell me, in our small time remaining, how you view the role of business in society, and can business be a force for good?
Yes, quite simply, I view for the long term, society is what gives a business the license to operate. They will determine. And we are 109 years old. I view that solely attribute to that society views what we do has value. So I back up in the work I participated in on the purpose of a corporation. To me, it enshrined what I believe, and what I believe has been true for decades. I think it raises the bar, though, for everyone, and it says that you can have both a purpose and a profit motive at the same time. And to me, that's always been clear. In other words, you couldn't operate for the long term unless you made money. You couldn't do, though, and operate unless you did the right things. And it was a very much a virtuous circle that was there. So it is all about, I believe, license to operate for the long term. And I am very pleased that we signed on. And to me, every day, it's about doing a better job for every one of those constituents.
Ginni, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here.